Thank you all for coming. I call this meeting to order at 5:32. We'll move on with the agenda. Alright, first we'll start with roll call. Alejandro. Here. Eric.
Here.
Joey.
Here.
Edgar.
Here.
Dane.
Here.
Alex.
Here.
Aubrey.
Here.
Josh is excused. Martin.
Here.
Lacey.
Here.
Cece excused.
I'm here.
No, Cece.
Oh, I thought you skipped me.
Oh, no. I'm back,
Okay.
sorry. I'll get you.
You're like, I'm here. That threw me off.
But
I was
anyways,
like,
Monica's here.
Yeah.
Alright, Monica's here. Cece is excused. Greg. Marty. Jess. I'm here. And that's it. Sweet. Next will be agenda approval. Everyone look over the agenda for February 26th. Eric.
I move to approve the agenda for today's meeting.
Second.
Alex seconds. Discussion. Seeing none. All those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Seeing none. So moved. We will now move to the approval of the minutes for meeting February 19th. Just right. You can look over the minutes. Voice any comments, questions, concerns. Eric.
I move to approve the minutes of last week's meeting.
Jess seconds. Discussion. Seeing none. All those in favor approving the minutes? Opposed? Abstentions? So moved. Alright, we'll now move to reports. Don't necessarily have any reports. I was just kind of notified that the requesters for request 2047, they're on the west side. We tried contacting them to see if we could work something out for them to still present. We haven't got anything in return, so supplementary funding request 2047 we may not hear, but we'll also, when we get to that point, see if we hear back from them at all or anything like that. But yeah, that's my reports. Lacey?
I mean, just with that is we did send out notice. The student who's presenting reached out today to ask if they could do it via distance, and we reached out to try and get a hold of them this afternoon, but haven't heard back. So, because we were going to offer what we could do or move it to next week. So, knowing they did reach out, we'll see. All right, great. You got yours? Yeah. Okay. So we'll see if they show up or not. But again, they're on the west side, so I'm doubting it. So we may be moving that one to next week. But since we didn't get an affirmative. Other two pieces. One is just an exciting, well, more exciting for some of us. The website is being updated and moved to the new format tomorrow. So we should be seeing, which is moving to the new format that the whole central website is moving to, which will look nicer and sleeker, but also, thanks to a considerable amount of work that Aubrey did, will be much more organized. It'll still have all the information we have. It will be in a much easier to navigate manner, so you all won't have to keep asking me where to find things hidden on the website over the years. So we'll definitely make sure that's up and running, but then take a look and definitely thank Aubrey, because she put a lot of time into going and pulling and organizing and making it clean. So
Thank you.
I'll show you all that later. The other one is really just kind of a bit of a reminder, but to give a little bit more detail, because I know we're having a lot of discussions about a lot of things with our subcommittee, about the budget, about multiple things, is just a reminder that we are, again, going back to training in October, we are held under the state's Open Public Meeting Act requirements. And we didn't go into a ton of detail with it because it doesn't come up often, but reminding you all what that means is because we are held under the RCWs, as every piece of business that is S&A is open to the public, which is why our meetings are open to everyone. We have to have them posted 24 hours in advance publicly. We don't have to have them recorded, but we do for that purpose of being transparent. But this also means that any meetings and discussions we have regarding business have to be notified and open. Technically, any meeting of more than 5 members of this committee where any business is discussed is a violation of that, which means those individuals couldn't participate in the official discussion that happens, or any business that gets decided there would be null and void. So I say that just mostly as a cautionary piece that we need to be very mindful. Again, as we're looking at things, when we're talking about some of the supplemental pieces, whether it's the budget part that we're going to discuss this afternoon or about the subcommittee pieces, is that we have to have these things scheduled in advance, and also that they're open not only to the public but the whole committee. So be mindful of conversations that we're having that we can't have ad hoc mini subcommittee discussions. One, because it does leave out the voice of everyone, but also because we do want them to be open and transparent. So things that are being discussed, pros or cons, are intended to be done openly with the full committee and with the ability for public comments to be said, as we'll see tonight, to where any members, including us on the committee, but any members can come and provide feedback, so that way the committee can take that into consideration. And so I want to be mindful of that because we don't really stress that enough, but it does have some pretty strong legal implications that I get to be the one who has to deal with on the other side of that. So be mindful of that. Eric?
Did something happen?
No, I mean, it's more just conversations that happen and conversations regarding a lot of stuff, because this is all stuff that is very impactful. It's all stuff that fortunately you all are very passionate about, which I appreciate. But being mindful of that so we don't find ourselves in a spot to where we are having businesses being discussed or determined or things outside of the official spot. Because that would be a situation where I'd have to ask you, not you, Eric, but you and whoever else would have to be excused from whatever it is, or we'd have to reverse whatever decision was made. So just to save us that challenge proactively, want to make sure I bring that up for the group to know. Any questions on that? Awesome.
My report is going to be, I mean, obviously we're going to be talking about the budget a little further down, but I want to let everybody know that yesterday I was able to present to the President's Budget Advisory Committee, and they did approve all of the supplemental requests that this committee passed all the way up to them. So that's good news. And then I just wanted to make sure I shared their comments and feedbacks regarding our budget situation. So there was a couple of members that wanted to share potential concerns of a negative impact that could happen for spring events and specifically conferences, so student travel, because they are obviously aware of our current budget situation, which is sitting at about roughly $26,000. So they just wanted to make sure that they shared that communication down to the committee. But with that being said, the committee, so PBAC's committee actually got a report that really kind of broke down by category of where the funding is going, which is, I'm sure you guys all know, primarily going to clubs and organizations, and ultimately travel itself. And so they're kind of aware, but they just wanted to make sure they make that statement about spring quarter events. Was there any questions about that? Okay, great. And then the last piece, oh gosh, here we go, is to just update that we have about $26,000 left in our budget so far. And this $200,000 figure is actually all of these requests combined. So I just kind of want to put that number out there so everybody's aware of where we are currently sitting. That is it.
Awesome. Alright, with that we'll move to the next part of the agenda, which is public comment, first call. There?
Would you prefer that I come up so that?
I mean, you can be there. He can pick you up on it.
Okay. Okay. My name is Jeff Snedeker. I'm the advisor to the CWU Horn Club in the music department. The club itself is preparing to make a supplemental request in the spring because we were told that was when to do it based on when the conference we were attending is. So yesterday or the day before, I personally watched the video of the meeting from last week to just kind of see what the different various proposals and so forth resembled, just to know kind of what we have ahead. And I did listen all the way through the meeting. It raised some questions, and so I have just a couple of questions as a part of this. The first thing, though, I need to preface by saying that the characterization of the music requests that have come in the past to sort of go to be, I think the quote was, go to be at the root, is not entirely accurate. I think pretty much all the music requests that have come either indirectly through the department funds that have been allocated or in supplemental requests are based on, not on simply attending something to walk through and be in a place. Almost all that I'm aware of, well, all that I'm aware of, are specific festivals or conferences that involve an application process that then goes through an approval such that there is a formal invitation and a requirement for formal participation. So there must be a concert, there must be a presentation of some sort. And so, as I say, the characterization that was presented in the meeting is not accurate. So as a result, though, that leads to my question, because in listening to the proposal, I talked to my colleague just briefly to get some clarification on the proposal that's coming forward from ROTC. It's hard to talk about that because the questioning of such a thing can be viewed as unpatriotic or insensitive, and I certainly have no intention of doing that. I actually support the idea of going to visit a place, to be in the place, to understand what it feels like. However, I have to say that in the way that this was introduced and the way that it's phrased, it sounds a lot like a summer abroad program. And I know that learning takes place. And we have a number of summer programs we've offered over the past few years that have been that, and they've been totally funded by the students themselves, paying tuition, being in classes, going and being in the situation. But that is not something that supplemental funding has ever come from. So again, it's awkward to bring it up because but the principle involved, I think, is something that first needs some clarification. But it has prompted these two questions on behalf of the Horn Club, because the Horn Club has been offered an invitation to go to an international conference in the summer. Because it's in the summer, we've taken some time to really work out our budget very carefully to decide how much we can contribute. And knowing we have that much in advance, we've waited until essentially the last possible moment for us to make any sort of request. So it prompts these questions. Number one, does the sponsorship of that particular program and others that I may not be aware of that resemble it constitute a change in policy with regard to how funding is going to be considered? Because if it really is the idea that we're going to allow the sort of go visit and not necessarily formally participate, I know they'll be participating in certain things, but based on the description I heard, it sounds like a class, not a formal presentation to professionals, and the sort of thing that I've always understood that this committee has sort of drawn the line there. So if this constitutes a change in policy, then we, of course, have many different sorts of possible proposals to come forward to walk in the shoes of Beethoven or walk in the shoes of Mozart and that sort of thing. And so it sets an interesting precedent if in fact that's a formal change in policy. And then the second question that I have, so that is my first question, is this a change in policy? And the second is, if this goes forward, if we're on the agenda for early spring quarter, perhaps even the first meeting, is there going to be any money left for us at all? We're going to request somewhere in the area of $4,000 for 14 people to travel, which is a lot different than $90,000 for 20 people. But we're just going to Eugene because this year, the conference that we've been accepted to, which last year was in Belgium, we didn't apply for that. This year it's in Eugene, which we can drive to. And we would hate to be sort of pushed out, just like any other group that will be presenting a request, just because all the money's gone. And we know that, by the way, and we respect the idea that it's your money to do with what you choose. But if this policy change is in fact a formal policy change, then get ready, because you're going to get a lot of others that are going to be along similar lines. Okay, so that's my comment, and I'm happy to answer questions if you need to ask me.
And I'll touch on the mostly. I mean, while public comment is a public comment, but I know there were questions which I think are relevant for the committee is twofold. And I'm going to answer your second question first. Is that's actually being discussed tonight? Is the budget situation? again, as Lacey just kind of mentioned a moment ago, where we are budget-wise, even with what we've already received, we do not have the funding for, so we don't know. The committee will determine that. The other one, the best, because I don't want to touch on, because I don't have a say or a vote, and deliberation is happening tonight, but there is no change in policy. I will say any requests that make it before the committee are allowable expenses that S&A money can be used on. And we can discuss more during deliberation in terms of if the committee wants to ask questions about other requests we've received in the past that are similar or not, but there's not a change in policy. Anything that comes here is allowable.
May I respond to that? Okay, the only, I believe you when you say that it's not a change in policy. What I remember is from previous times, which have been many times that I've come before this body over the past 20-some years, that has always been the red line. That has always been, if you're not presenting, you're going because it's for your own enrichment, and we're not going to support that. And that's why I'm asking if it's a change, because again, this group gets to do what it wants, but that is a very marked change. And the precedent it sets is something that this group should be ready for, because the doors will open wide, and it'll be a whole new set of proposals that you're going to have to contend with. To be fair to the students involved, doesn't affect me. Your funding doesn't go to me, but to them it does. And when you spend all of it, and somebody doesn't get it, obviously they're going to be concerned about what happens next.
And those are all things the committee is definitely aware of. Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other public comment? Start there.
Hello, my name is Kendall Baker. I'm part of the Family and Child Life graduate program we presented last week. I do have a revised budget. Lacey, did you print one out?
They have one.
I have extras if anyone needs one. We had a lot of people working on the numbers for that presentation, and so I wanted to clarify some of those numbers. Our total cost is that first number that includes the students, the advisor, and our expected contribution out of pocket. And then these deductions from that total cost, our club account, we're hoping not to drain that, but again, that's what we have right now. The student out of pocket, what we expect to pay, we did get a $500 career services fund, and tonight we're requesting that $3,000 from the funds council meeting later this evening. So our new requested budget, rather than what we presented last week of $13,000, our new budget is $10,368. So divided by the 12 students going, that's about $860 per student.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other public comment?
Hi, sir. Bonnie Kovach, I'm the department chair for military science. I just wanted to first thank the council for hearing our presentation last week. It was a new experience for us and for the students, and they learned a lot from it. And then I wanted to clarify a point that did come up during question and answer. Concern also indicated here tonight that this is just a study abroad or a field trip. Sir, I think you're right, that this is a field trip. It's by definition a field trip. This is a trip to enhance the last 4 years of military science curriculum that these student cadets have had here on campus. They will go and experience and do the field study portion, that's what this is, the field study portion of their academic pursuit in their military science minor before they commission here in June. It's immediately brought back, their experience is brought back to students here on campus, first in the ROTC department and the underclassmen, and then as they use that experience to continue to enhance their academic pursuits across the campus. ROTC is not a major, we're a minor, and so these students are academic majors across all 4 colleges. So I just wanted to bring that up, that I agree, it is a trip. That it's the field study portion of what they are doing to enhance their curriculum. And I just wanted the council to do that. Thank you.
Seeing no further public comment, we will now move to old business, subsection A, the budget discussion. Okay. Oh, you're right. Oh. Okay. Alright, we'll start with the budget discussion. I'll open up the floor to the committee to talk about what direction we like to go based on what we know.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll kick it off. All right. Well, I mean, obviously, it's pretty obvious that we only have about $26,000, and we have almost $200,000 of requests just for this quarter. And so that obviously needs to be addressed at some level. But I think right now, I'm really looking to see where the committee stands of what we want to do next. So there's obviously a possibility of increasing the budget. I think everybody understands that. But the question would be, this is obviously the committee's vote. I do not have this vote. And so it really depends on how the committee members want to move forward. I did share previously PBAC's concern that it could negatively impact spring quarter's requests, which I think everybody around the table can understand that. I do, kind of want to bring up that yes, we have $531,000 of requests, which is a lot of money, which is more money than we've had in the past. And so that is something that we want to be mindful of and also think about the future and the impact. So a few of the things that we have talked about, kind of trying to summarize, is if the committee does agree to increase the budget, what would that mean? And yes, that could impact the future supplemental budget, as probably all of us have known since I've been repeating this every meeting probably, is that this is one-time money. So inevitably, we are going to be sitting with a supplemental budget that will be drained down to zero. It's just up to this committee of when that's going to happen. So if we do decide to go ahead and increase, it will impact the future, but that doesn't necessarily mean it will impact next year. But it will be something that I would like the committee to recognize and be mindful of, but then also be mindful of the impact to our current student body right now.
So share my piece. I would be willing to revisit raising the budget after we've formed a solid set of criteria for supplemental funding. Until we do that, I personally am not comfortable continuing to allocate money on top of the budget that we already decided on, which $300,000, if I'm not mistaken, is higher than we've usually set it. So we're already cutting into that supplemental pot that is one-time money. So I'm fine with revisiting it as long as we have solid criteria and we've finished having that conversation. Until then, I think we should make do with what we have and see where we're at.
Is that a motion?
Does it have to be?
What I was going to say beforehand is, to add on this is really just so you all are aware, because this is where we held it off the last few weeks, is tonight will be when the money would run out if you're at that. So intentionally putting this discussion before you get to the voting side of that. You all have, and I'll really throw out what the options are, and I can't give you my opinion on this. But the options that you really have are remain where it is, as Alex is saying his preference is, which means once the remaining 26,000 is done, we are done for the year at that point, regardless of who is left on there. The other part is to increase it a set amount, and then the committee would make the decision depending on what you set it at, if that money then runs out again, to have another discussion on what we do at that point, because it is allowable within you all, or where you go at that point. The other part is we have two pieces hanging out there as well. We have the group of requests that have all been turned in at the deadline that the committee set this year, saying they all had to be turned in by January 22nd, and that they would be seen winter quarter. And so we still have the ones tonight, as well as the ones the next 2 weeks who are on there, who are already on the docket. And the question would be what to do with those. And then the option of for spring quarter as well, which spring quarter, our agenda is already fairly full, given the annual reports and everything. So there's limited space. Not none, but limited space on what we do for any remaining requests. And so you all kind of have a couple things to determine. Obviously, if we do not increase the budget, that kind of determines everything else. If you do, there's other parts involved with that. And I guess the part that hasn't come up, which I think is relevant for you all to know, and I apologize, Lacey, because I'm gonna ask the question, as we talked about, so you all are aware, is the amount of money we have, as we talk about, this is one-time funding that we do have, but it is money that you all are responsible for making sure is utilized. And I think as has been worded for you all to be aware, as was shared by PVAC and it was shared by public comment earlier, the concerns if we don't have funding available, what that has. Again, you all have the decision on that within it, but to be mindful of what those impacts are, because you are the ones answering for that. You all as the students are speaking to what the students are wanting. If it's not to, then what we do with that. But the question is really to be clear on what the actual reserve balance is that we have, that we would be eating away from over the next period of time.
So this is something again that I've shared multiple times. So again, we have roughly about $3.4 million in this in the supplemental budget. So that is quite a bit of money. So I do want people to really think about that, and I appreciate Alex, you sharing your where you're coming from. And I think that everybody around the table, especially voting members, should really take this opportunity to share where they're at as well. This is a pretty impactful decision, and yes, we need to be mindful. And so it's a fine line, and it's going to be hard. It's going to be a hard decision. But really, what we're looking at is, are we going to say no and be done at the end of the $26,000 and sit on the remaining 3.4 until the next year's committee, or are we going to eat away at that and spend it on this year? Now, before anybody answers that, I really do think that the committee should be thinking about what to do in the future. This is not going to be a sustainable trend that this committee can withstand. So when we talk about the certain things that the committee has expressed, those are things that I do think we should be talking about as a group and talking about what we can do to make sure that this doesn't happen in the future.
And I know Eric has something, but I don't know if you have first.
Oh, wait.
The part I want to touch on that is to give the historical piece, is to touch on this is the largest amount we've had of requests. I mean, you can go back and see, and we pulled the 2 missing years that weren't on the website, so we'll get those updated. But this is the largest dollar figure of requests we've received annually, and this was all by January 22nd, which normally we have it open throughout the whole year. I will say the number of requests is pretty high with where we get as well, but the dollar figure is. This is not the highest amount that we have allocated if we do the 300,000. There have been years where it has been bumped up beyond that. But the sheer dollar figure that we've seen at this point is absolutely higher. So that is another piece of, regardless of what is done this year, is intentional for the committee in the future to be mindful, because it is not a sustainable. And I don't anticipate this is the case, so keep that in mind. But if we were to keep things open and we're looking at getting $1 million in supplemental requests every year, is not sustainable for this committee to really be able to see and hear, that would absolutely eat through that immediately. But so we do have to be mindful. We can't control what comes in necessarily, and we can't necessarily anticipate what's going to come in, which I know is where it's challenging for you all when we set the budget before we even have a single request come in, is we don't know what we're going to see, which is why there is the ability that you all have to be adaptable to some of that. But this is an anomaly, but we are seeing this increase. If you look back, we've seen an increase in the number of requests consistently over the last several years, and an increase in the amounts being requested. And there's no reason we would anticipate to see that trend decline unless there's other changes that take place moving forward, which would not be this year.
Eric?
So let me start by saying I think this committee definitely needs to look at a creation similar to how OUR analyzes requests. I think it's important that we, along with creating, what's the term for those? Thank you, KPIs. Along with that, we need to create something similar to OUR and have where we get the requests for each quarter, we sit, we discuss, that's it. It's a set amount of money or a percentage or something, but again, discuss that beforehand, because I think that will take a lot of the stress that this is going to bring on all of us to discuss this, because I feel personally stressed about this because I'm considering what PBAC has said, and they're right. I personally don't want to say, well, this is over, we're done. And people that have come that want to request money for spring, the Horn organization, they've been invited to something. And if we today say no more, then we're putting our fellow students at a detriment and say, sorry, and I don't want to be that person doing that personally. That being said, I also don't want to raise the budget $300,000 more. Just saying that anecdotally. So I'm torn because I want to send the Horn group to Eugene, and I want to be able to send the ROTC to Omaha Beach because that's important. That's a representative of our school growing and becoming part of the greater community. When they're doing this with schools like, I don't remember the schools they mentioned, but very few schools do this thing, so that's important. But I also want the lacrosse team to be able to go to their competition. And I think what PBAC, their concerns about us not having any money left for spring, we really have to consider increasing this budget for the purpose. That doesn't mean that all the requests are going to come in for that increase, minus what we have now. But I just think if we don't increase the budget, we're really hurting our fellow classmates.
Yeah, if I understand you correctly, Eric, I agree with you as well. As far as what Alex said, I agree with part of what you said. I agree that it should be revisited to increase the budget. However, I have a problem with not increasing it, and then if we did increase it, evaluate it a different way for the same year. I feel like that could be a problem. I guess answer it.
Yeah.
It's my understanding we wouldn't be able to do that, right?
Well, and that's what. So two things that I can answer. One, which is going to touch on that, is the piece that Eric touched on is really not going to be relevant to this. And I say that this is a larger piece because that involves a change to our actual policy, because our policy is the way this is lined out. And as you all know, we just got the policy approved last week that we finished last May. So the chances of us doing that in any expedited route aren't going to happen. Now, in terms of a rubric, again, we have that rough guiding document that we had at the beginning, but it's not a metric piece within it. So really, I mean, these are all beneficial things that, again, we're looking at. And I know that's what the subcommittee partially is looking at in a lot of those. But you all, unfortunately, are tasked with making a decision based on where we are today with the procedures we have today.
Yeah. So to kind of integrate the 2 points, my intent in saying we should revisit it once we have criteria is I think that could be informative for us to look at whether or not we do raise the budget. Once we decide these are what the things we value are, these are the things that as a committee we find important, I think that, because I don't know, it could or could not impact whether we raise it or don't raise it or what the amount is. But I think it could at the very least be informative going forward. And just to touch on the longevity piece and the impact piece, yes, it will obviously have impacts for people wanting to request stuff in the spring. At the same time, it's going to have impacts for people in future years if we raise it. It has impacts right now because we don't know how representative these requests are of the student body. We can say we're hurting our fellow students, but we don't even know how representative this is. We don't know how much the student body this is really impacting because we don't have that information. Which is why I'm totally comfortable revisiting it once we have that information, once we're able to look at it and say, okay, we have the metrics, we have the numbers, then being able to evaluate that. I just think we're flying blind here if we raise it and we're not basing that on anything.
I'll have to respectfully disagree with you. I think we do know that all students are using this money. This is the students' money. It is being used by students. We know from the people that are going that they are students, so there's no question there. And I think putting this decision off is irresponsible of this committee. We need to take the vote. If we decide not to increase it, then that's the vote we take. If we increase the budget, then that's the vote we take. But we have to be brave today, not tomorrow.
Well, and again, this is not meant to encourage anyone, just so you'll know, if you increase, that does not mean you need to fund
Right.
requests that are coming forward as well, to be mindful of that. And as, again, because I know we can have this conversation all night, and I'm happy to if you all want to. But as a point of that is really, if there is no decision, I mean, we'll get to a point where we'll just essentially move on within that. If there's not a motion to do something, then the budget really stays where it's at.
Well, I think they have.
Okay.
Well, I think it's very important to have these evaluations, and those are, we definitely need those to be more consistent in everything everybody else is saying. And we've had these talks for weeks on end, right? But I kind of have to side with the side where we need to, act now as well.
Right. I agree. I move to not raise the budget at this time.
There's a motion, Jesse second. Discussion on the motion to not adjust the budget. Dane?
Yeah, just to continue, I mean, obviously we've got the most requests ever this year that's been decided by the advisors, but also the reason we've been spending more money in addition to that is also we've accepted the requests based on food now, so we're spending more money on that. And also just a new year, we have rising costs as well. I mean, and it's not like we haven't been evaluating critically the previous requests as well. Yeah, that's all I have to say.
Further discussion, Alejandro?
I agree with Alex. I don't think we should raise the budget kind of blindly without knowing exactly what it is that this committee values. On week one, when we started the year, we just said, the mindset kind of looks like we have $300,000 kind of allocated. And if we do the same thing, we're just gonna, if we increase it now $100,000, $200,000, $300,000, that's going to be the mindset. Say, oh, we have all this money, let's just allocate it all. So I think it's important to really revisit what this committee values, and we should think more critically about what we do with it.
Okay. A lot of good discussion. And I think everybody, so please stop me if I misspeak here, but I think everybody can agree that there's going to be an impact, whether a decision is made or not. And so when we're talking about what the committee values and the importance of these requests, I push that back. What is the impact? Do you want to have the impact to increase the budget to sustain these upcoming requests that we know are going to happen that are up on the board? Or do you want to answer for sitting on a good chunk of money without having an intent to spend it? So that is also equally a tough situation. And I want everybody to be mindful that if we don't increase the budget, I will want feedback on why what is the plan for that extra money?
I do not want to be a student that is on this committee sitting, and we have these people that are in front of us here to request money and have to answer for the fact that there's money in supplemental that could cover this. There have been increasing requests, increasing amount of requests, the amount of money they're asking for. So the question for the committee in the future is, why is this happening? Students are requesting more money, so that means they're wanting more things. So the question then arises, does the fee need to be increased? Things like that, hypothetical. And I know if I had nothing to do with this committee and I knew there were $3.4 million left, and we have these requests and possible future requests in spring coming, and we didn't increase the budget, and we just said, sorry, we're not going to do that. I don't want to be that student that has to answer to my fellow students that we did that.
Dane?
Yeah, even if we do, we're not increase the budget, it doesn't mean we're allocating it. We're still evaluating critically. We're still looking at each request, how we have been throughout the year. And with the addition of the subcommittee's work, we'll be able to do that even better. And I mean, also, we earn $200,000 in interest every year.
That is.
That's what's been said.
Edgar, do you still have your?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I guess to go off Alejandro's point, if we're like at the beginning of the year we were just allocating whatever, we're kind of punishing the other requesters later on because now we suddenly decide to critically evaluate everything, right? So it's like we gave the opportunity to everybody in the beginning, all willy-nilly just giving out money, but now we're not wanting to fund anything.
Eric?
I don't think we gave out money on this committee willy-nilly. I think we all had discussions about the types that we want to give out. I find that an unfair terminology because we are all responsible people here on this committee, and I don't think any of us can come here to pass out money willy-nilly.
Well,
Edgar.
I guess I used the wrong term, but I meant, it just looked like we have all this money and, what's what's $1,000, right? I looked at something like that, maybe, who knows,
Lacey.
I just want to address the interest
Thank you.
income. So that is actually included in the money we allocate out. So it's not supplemental, it's base funded. So when we talk about how we allocate all the money out for base funded areas, it's wrapped up in that. I just want to be clear,
Okay, thank you.
just so everybody's aware.
And then Alan.
And I know that consistency has come up a lot of times in these discussions. And so just for the record, I would like to mention that I believe I have voted to recommend that we approve maybe 3 or 4 of every single request that has come in. And that is because consistently I've had issues with how critical we've been with these requests and whether we should be. So when we talk about consistency and what that might be an issue for other individuals, that is not an issue that I am facing right now because I haven't voted to approve most of these requests. So I agree that yes, it is a difficult position to be in when we start changing the level of how critically we evaluate things going forward. I would say that amount of scrutiny just needs to start earlier. I agree that, yeah, it's unfair to start it halfway through the year. I don't think that means that we are not critical for the other half of the year. I think that means we need to start being critical at the beginning of the year. And that is the issue that I've had with how we've been allocating these things. I totally agree. I completely agree that it's unfair to change it up, but I'm going in the opposite direction with it. I think that just means we need to be more critical, not that we need to be as lax with what we're funding later on.
Joe.
And I'll go back to the training in the fall. And I will say I appreciate Alex's transparency because he has been clear on his stance throughout. Really, the reason that the committee has is, again, we have the guiding document that you were all given that does not have a rubric because this is intended to be up to what you all, specifically as the students, and I know we have faculty representation on here too, so I'm not leaving you two out. But I'm saying it really is intended as what you all see as value of the money because every year is going to be different. Some years we will have $3 million in reserves and we're going to get to a point where we're going to have only $100,000 and that will be the end of it. And the committee is going to have to look at things very differently that year than maybe we're going to have to look at this year. And there may be different value to things as well that we're looking at. So really this is where it was at the beginning of the year for you all to be consistent for yourselves. And what is important or what it sees value for Edgar is not maybe necessarily going to be the same thing as Alex. And that's why we have representation on this committee, is for you all to provide that feedback of what you all see as value on here. And that it really is determined by you all within that. And I will say up to this point, and I have been paying attention to what everyone is voting and where you all on certain ones have been consistent individually and where sometimes people have changed voting pieces, and I note those myself, not necessarily down for anyone to see. And I will say for the most part, each of you have been consistent with different types of voting and your stances on things throughout the whole year, which I think has been appreciative that you have these different viewpoints to share because these are the viewpoints that we have out here as our population of the campus. This is, and as you all know last week, and I just showed Brandon, this is a piece that is very much on the forefront for people. It is in the Observer that will be out when we leave this is this exact discussion and the point. So there is going to be a lot of eyes on this and a lot of viewpoints that are going to be on both ends of this, to where we have people who are going to want to say, no, we should keep it where it is. We want to make sure that we have supplemental funding for the next 10 years. And others saying, no, you should increase it because we want the students who are here now to benefit from the money that's there. And you're going to get that feedback. And I think you all just need to be clear in why you're making whichever decision you're making, because we are going to get pushback one way or the other. And ultimately, Lacey's going to have to answer for it when she goes to PBAC and the president to say why we're doing one way or the other within that. So I want you all to be able to share your viewpoints on this and to know that it's appreciative that you all can have these different ones and have discussion, because it's not personal within these things. You all are sharing the viewpoints you have as well as the other students that we have here, and it's all relevant. But you all do have to come to a decision, and you all do have to kind of go with that, and the decision you make is going to have an impact one way or the other for the rest of this year. Next year is going to be completely different. We may have a committee who has completely different criteria that they want to look at, and completely different things given the students who are on here. So being mindful of what you are looking at is right now what we have for this year, from the fall through through the spring when your all's term ends on this.
And just for the sake of time and everyone in the room who's presenting or waiting for a decision, yeah, I agree that I would like to hear everyone's points, but I think we should either do that or address the motion on the floor. So.
Dane?
Can you clarify the motion? Are we not increasing the budget the rest of the year, or just not increasing it today?
I believe I said at this time, but.
Yeah, I think the motion, and Aubrey can read back to it, is I think it was to not increase the budget at this time.
Yeah, at this time.
Alright, so is that calling the motion?
Yeah,
Yep.
call the
Alright,
motion.
so call the motion. So now we'll move to voting on not to adjust the budget at this time. All those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? So
Yes.
passes. Alright, budget remains the same for now. We'll talk about criteria probably later.
So just to wrap up this topic, what Joey was mentioning, so regardless of the decision that is made at the committee, I would really like a clear decision or outcome, because not only do I share this with the president's committee, but I also do share this with the individual students, the clubs, the orgs, the departments, so the entire CW community. And so when we get to that point, I just want to make sure that is why I asked some clarifying questions, so that I can accurately pass that down to the rest of the community.
So we want to just say right
I'm
now.
motioning for a short recess.
Oh,
Go.
she was wanting a short recess.
Yeah.
You have a comment before you.
Yeah, I have a comment. It is unfortunate that we as a committee have just decided to be a gatekeeper of the rest of the money, even though it is just at this moment. I don't believe that it is. I believe that we have said to the students who are sitting here, sorry, there isn't going to be any more. And I am honestly very disgusted with that, because we all pay fees to be at this school, and we should be benefiting from our fees that we're paying today, and not when we're not here anymore.
Jess.
I'm motioning for a 5-minute recess.
Alright, we have a motion on the table, 5 minutes. Discussion, seeing none. All those in favor? 5-minute recess. Opposed? Abstentions? So moved. Well, we'll conduct a meeting at 6:26, or resume the meeting at 6:26. Alright everyone, I call this meeting back to order at 6:26. All committee members, please find your seats back at the table. Okay, we'll now continue with old business subsection B, supplemental funding request voting. But before we go into voting, I just want to let you know, as we're listening to these requests, we will kind of possibly, I guess, use up all of the budget. I just want to know if anyone wishes to fund any, when we don't have the available funds right now in our current budget. We will motion to, I guess, like you said, increase the budget, and then we'll motion to allocate or request to allocate to that fund. Okay. So I'm just letting you know that those will be kind of like the, I guess, order of operations when going through these votings if we find ourselves in that situation. All right, and so with that, I'll start.
I think the only other part is that every group who's already been on here will have the opportunity to present regardless of whether we have a budget.
Yep.
So they will present and then you all will still deliberate and make decisions based on that. So it's clear to you all, but also to everyone in the room who is sitting here waiting, trying to figure out what to do.
Perfect. And so with that, we'll move to request 2043, which is the ACLP conference, where we're requesting the new amount.
$10,368.82.
Yes, requesting $10,000, $368.82. Alex, starting discussion.
I move to recommend that we approve the amount of $10,369.
Okay, there's a motion. Is there a second? Table. Without a second, that motion dies. We'll continue with just normal discussion on request 2043. Open floor back up. Refer back to the minutes if you wish. Eric?
I'll make a motion to approve the amount in the full $10,369. Sorry, I was eating. I was eating and food in my mouth.
Alright, we have a motion on the table. Alex seconds. We move to discussion on the amount to fund them $13,860 or $10,369. Any discussion on that?
The only part I would say with these and all of them is you all need to make sure that you're still being, as we talked about, consistent and intentional. As you all were just saying, with each of these that we're looking at them critically and being aware of them. The other part, as I keep saying, is to be mindful while yes, we're at the point where the money may or may not go out momentarily, that we still need to be mindful that we're using the same criteria, making the same judgments for groups who came in November versus those coming now. From an equity sake of what we have here. So if there is reasons that you're choosing not to vote on things, I will once again encourage you to make sure you're sharing that publicly so the group is aware of any dissenting votes.
So there's seeing no discussion, we'll move to voting. All those in favor? Or opposed? Abstentions? So moved. Fund the full amount of $10,369. We'll now move to request 2044, which is the MPI conference for $2,800. Open up the floor to discussion. Alex?
Move to recommend that we allocate the full amount of $2,800.
Eric? Second. Eric seconds. We'll move to discussion. Seeing none. Alright. Move to voting. All those in favor of funding them the full amount, $2,800. Sorry. Alright. All those in favor?
Sorry.
All those opposed? Abstentions?
Tie goes to the chair.
If I deny it, do we go back to discussion?
Yes.
Alright, so I'll vote opposed, so we can go back to discussion. I do that because I just kinda wanna know what's going on in everyone's mind on why they're kinda like doing that, or why they wish to fund the full amount. Right now, I just don't feel comfortable with what we're doing, especially after our conversation. So yeah, Alex.
Lacey, would you mind showing the request that we've denied? 2.
Oh, yeah, here.
Great.
Alex.
I'd like to reintroduce my motion to approve the full amount of $2,800.
Eric.
Second.
Well, and I think going to Brandon's point here is there's obviously a lot going on that people are thinking on why they're voting yay, nay, and abstaining, and I think it's helpful for you all to discuss that. Because I can make assumptions, and I think that's where Brandon's sitting at as the tie vote is there was no discussion on this vote from anyone, and there was a 3-3-3 vote. So there's definitely different opinions on this one.
Dane.
The reason I voted to deny the first motion is because I do not like what the group had to say about how it would affect others on campus.
That's fair.
Edgar.
Yeah, just to go off Dane's point, we talk a lot about what the impact is going to be to other CWU students, and I don't really see that impact. So that's why I voted no.
Fair points. Yeah, fair points.
Greg.
As faculty on this committee, and this has gotten to a critical point with the budget and the voting, and where we are right now, I will continue to abstain and leave the decision up to the students. I feel it's important that this is a student decision and not mine as we get to this point.
Lacey.
And I just want to say I appreciate the people that are commenting. I'm the person that communicates back with these requesters, and it's really important for me to understand the entire committee's stance. So even those that have not spoken, I encourage you to speak so that I am able to convey the decision to the requesters.
I'll call the motion to order, which is to fund it the full amount, $2,800. Done the voting. All those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? So moved from the full amount, $2,800. We'll now move to request 2045, the professional staff ride, for $90,011.50. Alex?
I move that we recommend to approve $13,109.27.
Motion on the table. Is there a second to allocate the remaining of our budget? So there's no second, the motion dies. We'll now continue with discussion.
So, I have a question about this. So, the metric for this was from what it was said earlier, is to use the experience to enhance academic pursuits. So I just want to lay out a scenario that it's October of this year, and the art comes to here and says we'd like $10,000 to, $90,000, just say, to go to the Louvre. We're not going to be invited to go there. We're not going to present our art. We're not going to do anything like that. We're just going to go as any other tourist would go. We're going to see the Sherrod Museum, go to Rodin. We're going to do that, and we're going to come straight back. We are going to use that to experience our academic pursuits. We're also going to have the opera coming here in October, and all the singers are going to say, we're going to go to La Scala. It's going to cost us $90,000. And they're going to go, and we're going to look at the building, we're going to hear the orchestra, we're not going to sing, we're not going to present, we're not even going to represent the school. Even though we're there, they're not really representing the school because we're not invited, we are just tourists. We come back, we use the experience to enhance our academic pursuits. Drama wants to go to Broadway, catch a bunch of Broadway shows, see some off-Broadway. This costs, say, $90,000. Wants to do all these things. They come back, they enhance their academic pursuits, they become better actors. Business goes to the New York Stock Exchange. I have a bunch of these here. But they're all the same thing. We have this in October of this year. And as was said earlier, this is opening the floodgates. Funding even a penny of this gives a rubber stamp from this committee that it doesn't matter what you're doing. You do not have to be invited. You do not have to present. You don't have to do anything. All you have to do is go as a tourist. Eric, 1 second.
Oh no, I was just raising my hand.
All you have to do is go as a tourist, take the S&A money, you will be bankrupt by the time classes start. And I guarantee you, if this goes through tonight, I'll be back here. I mean, I've sat on this committee for 9,000 years now. But I look forward to being up there. Seriously, I look forward to being up there and just draining this budget with glee. So I just want to throw that on the table there and let's have a discussion.
Well, and I will say, I appreciate, Martin, you sharing your stance. The committee's aware. We have that discussion. And I don't want what I'm about to say to be taken as a way, one way or the other, as I constantly have to say, unfortunately. The one part I do want to point out is actually several of the examples you gave are things S&A has funded. We did pay for the art club to go down to San Francisco. We have paid for the fashion design to go down to Los Angeles. We have paid for a business club in which they were not invited, because this has been discussion.
May I just say that these are things.
Well, hold on.
Those are things that they cannot do. They cannot do.
You haven't
unless
been
they-
called out though, Martin.
I'm
So
sorry,
hold on.
I'm sorry.
And what I'm saying is not and that, I'm not discrediting that. I'm simply saying the stance is this is an allowable piece and there is precedent of this type of thing. It's still up to you all as the committee on whether or not you want to spend any or all money. I simply want to point out that we have seen a number of requests similar to this, and multiple times there is a lot of scrutiny from the committee for that very reason that you're saying of not presenting, not being invited. But we do have a number of requests if you go back through even your time on the committee that have come through. It is not the norm of what this committee has within that, but from a stance of it is something we have seen within that. And we can have more discussion later if you want. I can pull up every one of them. But we have a number
A
of
lot of
them.
them are bringing
Martin
up things.
stop. Haven't been called on yet. Eric.
Last year, when we approved money for the art club
Yeah.
to go to San Francisco, I supported that because in their enhancement of their education here at Central, participating, whether by visiting or showing your art, is important for the college experience, just as equally as it is being invited to perform at Carnegie Hall or the Kennedy Center. And I will say that similarly to the ROTC to go to Omaha Beach, this is enhancing their education experience. We, or I'm going to say it, me, I should not consider anything but things that are enhancing their education. And so therefore, if it is allowable under the rules, then I should consider it. That doesn't mean I vote yes or no. It just means it should be considered because it is allowable. And if it's not allowable, then it's not going to come before us. And Lacey's going to do all the wonderful things that she does to say, sorry, it's not an allowable expense. But because it's allowable and it can come in front of this committee, it has value. It has value. It is valued for our students. And that's all that we should be looking at. And we should not be sitting here determining one thing better than the other because we don't like what they're doing. That's not a reason to vote against something.
And Martin, do you have?
I don't dislike what they're doing. I mean, I kind of take offense to that actually.
Well, sorry.
Eric.
I'm just expressing my opinion because it seems like you're quantifying their thing as a field trip. And let me finish. I'm not trying to cause trouble. I just don't like things being accused of something that at the end of the day, if that's the case, all of these things are field trips.
Well, and I do want to remind you all, again, I appreciate the different viewpoints and making sure that we're keeping it on the point of what the proposal is. And so I think Martin did a good job of expressing his point on why he feels he's not in favor of this. I want to make sure the whole committee is aware of the stance and the concerns that are raised. And Eric shared his stance on why he is in support of that, but that we're keeping it specific to the request, not about each other.
Alex.
So we've got kind of three options. We decline to recommend that we approve it. We recommend a partial amount, or we recommend the full amount. Is there a preference?
Yes.
Sorry, my throat's really sore. But I motion that we deny it because while I see the value in what they're doing and how it's going to affect them after they leave Central, I don't really see a huge impact on the current students because they're all graduating seniors. The trip's at the end of March. For how much it is, I just don't know that that's going to have the impact that we would want it to, especially when that's something I think we kind of pride ourselves on looking for, is how is this going to impact the greater body of Central.
So there's a motion on the table to deny request 2045. Alejandro, is that a second? Alejandro seconds. Discussion on the motion.
One just last thing. I don't know which way the vote will go, but just for the record, if this does go through, even a penny, that is, again, a rubber stamp from this committee to tell the music department, the art department, that we can come in and go anywhere in the world we want. Is that correct?
Lacey.
I'd like to bring that up because field trip or not, or these statements regarding we're opening the floodgates, I mean, it's starting to feel kind of threatening, to be honest, especially on a financial situation. So just to recap of how supplementals flow, is they flow through my office and we review them. There's multiple meetings that go through depending on what the request could be to vet to make sure that it's allowable. So the intent of what we could or could not do on this committee is it still stays the same, the policy still stays the same, the flow of the supplementals will still stay the same.
Is this a discussion on the motion?
Yeah.
All right.
Just to share my perspective, we're going to keep having these conversations until we hit zero, so I think we need to hit zero.
Joey.
And not to counter, but I will say you all will probably still keep having these because we're still going to hear every request up to 55 and have a discussion on them. So
Right. I think it'll just be
zero
a little
will
bit
just
more.
be a
It'll be a
different
little more cut and
conversation.
dry. That's the case.
All right. Is there any further discussion on the motion to deny request 2045? Seeing none, we'll move to voting. All those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? All right, so moved. Deny request 2045. We'll now move to request 2046, which is the American Chemical Society National Meeting for $908. Open for discussion. Alex?
Move to recommend that we approve the full amount of $908.
All right, is there a second? Jess seconds. Discussion on the motion to allocate the full amount. $908. Jess?
I really appreciate that the group really did a lot of outside funding and are only asking us for their hotel expenses.
Alright. Jess was saying she liked how much work they've done on the outside and that they're only requesting for their lodging. Dave?
Yeah, just to add on to that, they've also taken the red eye and they're sharing hotel rooms, $200 from career services, and another $21,000 or $2,100 requested from outside sources as well.
Any further discussion on the motion? Alright, seeing none, we'll move to voting. All those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? So moved. Recommend the full amount, $908. With that, that ends old business. Move to the next part of the agenda. New business, subsection A, which is base funding program reviews. First one being intramural sports and open rec. Are you doing both at the same time?
If that's okay, yeah.
Yeah. All right, we're gonna do both at the same time. Yeah. So that's intramural, open rec, and then university rec and admin. Yeah, you got this.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Matthew Boyer. I'm the director of the Recreation Center here. I hope you don't mind. I lumped both of these together into one presentation. All the questions that I was presented with will be answered. However, if you have additional, I'll be happy to answer them. So tonight we're talking about the rec admin budget and also intramural sports. As requested our org chart, we have 15 current professional staff. Of those 15, 10 are exempt and 5 are classified. And then at the very bottom here you see our list of 4 GAs, one of which just got a job. Great for him, but he's gone. So again, otherwise we are fully staffed. This is the first year we have been fully staffed in my close to a year and a half, 2 years here. So happy to say that. A little overview of our department. And again, this is the rec admin and intramural. So measure the staff, our facilities we operate. pretty straightforward, right? Everyone should know this already. The biggest thing you may not know is that we do have a lot of student staff. We are the number 2 employer of student staff on campus behind dining. So our programs and our services, I'll read them off to you. This is probably supported through the rec admin, because the rec admin budget covers our staff, pro staff, and I'll cover that in a second. More details on our usage, so who's coming to the rec center, who'll be using us. I say yes, of course, I'm biased. We are open 4,000 close to 5,000 hours every year. We do have various programs and participations. Participations is every time you swipe an ID, that counts as 1. So Lizzie may come in 10 times, she has 10 participations up there. Total sums for all the different areas, over 300,000. So that's what happened with that. Just intramurals, since that is also in this presentation, that detail is down here. So if you want to know how big a part intramurals is, it's down there, close to 900 games, 2,300 participants, and 11,000 participations by those people. I do talk fast, so if you understand it, you can clear, please ask questions throughout. Rec Admin S&A. So we do receive $422,000, and it goes strictly to our pro staff, those 15 pro staff. So there's a breakdown of where it's going to. If you look at 6% is covered through various means, rec fees or self-gen. If you want to know who it is, it's these great people that are in front over here, front row. We do have 14 amazing pro staff that serve the students here. And this is a fall picture of our staff training. Everyone behind is our students at that quarter. Intramural sports, since that is the other half of this presentation, here is the entire intramural budget. We are allocating $99,000 every year, and it's broken down largely to student wages. So of that total, we give it back to the students in the form of wages. They do have roughly 45 student employees every quarter. Sometimes more, sometimes less, depending on the sports that are offered that quarter. But that's kind of the breakdown. Most of the student staff, equipment, supplies, the champ shirts, the footballs, the basketballs, the goal nets, all those fun things to do to run the program. Program expenses and travel expenses. We do try to send teams to tournaments across the region. We had teams going to Eastern Washington. We sent teams to Oregon or UW, Wazoo to compete in intramurals or extramurals at those events. So, question on the budget? Pretty straightforward. Again, the bulk of it goes back to students. We're very proud of that. How do we get feedback? So, one thing I started last year, we've done 2 years now, is the NGT, the nominal group technique. So, our staff of 160 or more, it's not a quarter. Every winter quarter, we'll sit down and talk about how to make rec better. The question I ask them is, what can we do to make rec better? What do we need? What we don't see in rec? And individually, they write down their ideas. So at a table by themselves, they write their ideas down. We do this because if you're an extrovert, you love standing up in a room of 100 people and talking about your ideas. Not everyone is like that. So we do take individual brainstorming, write your ideas down, then at a table, buy into a large sheet of paper, and then we post those on the wall. We discuss them as a group. As extroverts, I like to talk in a group. They come up and talk. And then each person has 5 index cards to put on their top 5 ideas. We take those, we rank them, we look to see what students have said, and then we can address those issues. Something that came up last year and this year is more space. We know we are short of space, as everyone seems on campus. We were built for 7,000 students. We're over 10,000 now. Space is a premium inside the rec center. Seeing the students had a desire for more space and more squat racks, the most demanded equipment in our weight room right now, we took the climbing wall desk, weight room desk out of the weight room, put it in front of the building. Opened up 100 square foot more space for more machines. We are ordering 2 new squat racks. So we take the student feedback, we act on it, and we do best we can. They've also told us they want better communication amongst our staff. Well, our radios currently at limited range. We can't talk to the RSC or Alder or any of the other facilities. Even internally, they're not always great. We're buying new radios to improve the communication, working with the chief of police to make sure they contacted their emergency calls too. So we take student feedback very important. That's very important to us, take critically, and we are acting on it. We also have comment cards at the rec center, so we're happy to hear feedback. And also the annual assessment through focus groups or online surveys. So we try throughout the year to get constant student feedback from our users. In intramural sports, the question was on the request was, how do you choose the sports or programs you offer? We look at our past history of events, what we've done in the past. Let's look at national trends, our association, what's out there. And the AGT, they say, hey, we want the Frisbee, which they did. It's on the calendar. So we do get that feedback, put it into use. Last year we had 16 single events. Those could be the larger team sports, or they could be smaller individual dual sports like badminton, pickleball, esports tournaments. Those all go on throughout the year as well. Oh, sorry for that, students around learning. Impact. So how do we know we have impact? So this December we took our swipes into our rec center. We sent it to the Center for Academic Assessment and Research and said, we believe we impact retention and persistence of students. And they said, yeah, you pretty much do. So they did say that 3 out of 9 quarters, we had a statistically significant impact on the GPA. We understand that because we know that if students work out, they relieve stress, they think better, they learn better, they retain and recall knowledge better. So we're trying to quantify that with the data. Interesting thing about that is 3 out of 9, not 9 out of 9, which I disappointed. It was never the fall quarter. It was always the winter or spring quarters. So next year we'll do it again. And we'll figure out what that factor was, what's the variance there. But if in baseball, hey, we're bad. 333, we are an all-star. So for retention, between those 9 quarters the last 3 years, 2 of the 8, we were raising students came back. We knew we built community in the rec center, through our sport clubs, through intramural sports, or just being in the gym, the fitness classes, and everything else. So we are happy with that. And the last thing they told us is that all the demographic groups looked at, which are listed at the bottom here, along the list, each group never fell below 70% usage of the rec center. It never around 75%. So students of all kinds are coming into the rec center and using our services. And that's supported by the rec admin. But it also includes everything that's inside that building. So I have to say that from this data, yeah, students are using us, coming in. We are trying to increase how we serve students. I mentioned the internal budget a second ago. We are working with display services now to really reach out to those groups that aren't in the rec center. If they have limited vision, we're doing gold ball in the spring quarter, which is put blindfolds on if you are able-bodied, like gold ball. If we're looking at getting wheelchairs for wheelchair basketball or volleyball or tennis, cost is a factor there, so we're trying to find grants or other ways to create those events so everyone can experience the rec center and participation. Some of our partners, there are several. It's not all inclusive, but it's most majority of them. The rec center works with all these groups. The ones that have Asher are intramural partners. So the wellness center, we do up all night, midnight basketball for 3 and 3. DEC, they come and talk to our students about how to do conflict. Officials, it's probably the most hated job on campus because they're in a game and the students are playing. They may or feel they do know the rules better than the official. One side's always happy, one side's always upset. They gotta be in the middle and kind of moderate that. So DC comes to us train those officials on how to deal with conflict and sensitive racial and cultural sensitivities. Campus activities, we work student appreciation event throughout the year, esports tournaments as well. Disability services, I mentioned Gold Wall coming in, other ways we can reach out to that community. Museum of Culture and Environment, we are helping with a 5K event this coming spring quarter. Res Life, we host the Wildcat Cup and we help coordinate all those events for incoming first year students. Thanks all for intramurals, but other partners up there, we work with them all the time to make sure we are including students and serving students to the best of our ability. And at times we know that we have resources available, others do not, so we have to partner with them and make those things happen that they have these great ideas for. And I told you to be quick, so I am done with my presentation, but I'm happy to answer any questions I did not get to.
10 minutes of questions. Jess, do you have one?
Yeah. Could you roll back to your 3 out of 9 page? Sorry. Is this on everybody using the facilities, or is it related to your student employees?
The way we set them data about everyone that comes in the rec center.
Okay.
Then they have the entire student body as a comparison group.
Okay.
So it's every student on campus.
So do you have any, maybe not like up there, but that you can speak to regarding your student employees and how you impact their GPA or help retain them?
Well, this is every student, not student employees.
I was just asking if you had any knowledge on that.
So if they are a student employee, we do have restrictions or requirements for GPA. If they fall below certain thresholds, we pull them off the list, say, hey, you can't work. We also actually use more of a warning, saying, hey, you're falling below, you need to do that up. During the final exam week, we often try to make time for them to have study time in our break room. We do work on their schedules throughout the year, so if they do have challenges with their grades, they can talk to us, we take them off the sit if they can go focus on those grades as well. A lot of our employers around the community may be like, hey, you're working Monday through Friday, 6 to 3, no exceptions, here's your schedule. We're not like that, we want to make sure that they are successful, so we do work with them throughout the year on their class load and everything else. To go to a personal example, no, but we are willing to work through this throughout the year. And there's a lot of data from John Rady and the professional who looks at the impact of exercise on knowledge, basically the recall and retention of knowledge. So we know we serve an important need at campus. A lot of people think, oh, you spell ball out. We try to do so much more to build a community so students have that connection. We hear from a group later in the sport club area that kind of builds a strong community.
Do you find pressure on your budget for next year, the final year of the quadrennium, based on the increase of the minimum wage?
So last year, now we're talking about rec admin, no. Rec admin should go, that's a different fee
Yeah.
source. Yeah, because intramurals is fully funded, yes. Our quadrennial will be finishing soon, like next year, is that correct? Minimum wage at the time that budget was approved was 9 or 10. I wasn't here to state yet, I'm not sure where it was at. But I know in 2012, it went to $12, 2019, in 2020, 50, so it has increased exponentially since the budget was approved. So yes, there likely will be some kind of stress on the budget or request for more. Plus, as now we have a new person on staff that is knowledgeable and unified and inclusive recreation for intramurals, we want to expand that program offering, and that's why there's grants and ways to improve equipment for those groups. So, unlikely, or unfortunately, yes, it will be concerning, sure.
On the slide you had with the participations, and I know it's not, and I know we have a majority of the users on there are students. Do you know roughly what that is? Because I know other people can purchase a membership, but like roughly.
I believe it was 90% on something analyzed it.
That's what I was guessing.
Now, that's only for the rec center.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't. That was a laser.
There's a laser somewhere, but I don't know. Okay. Yeah.
So students, that could be non-student, students, maybe non-students too. That's only students too. So it's only really this number here.
Yeah.
But roughly 99% is students.
Okay.
Lacey.
Matt, can you explain who else could potentially have a membership outside of students to the committee so that they know?
Sure. So with memberships, students are our base membership level. Faculty, staff can purchase memberships as well. Their partners and spouses may purchase memberships, and then alumni also could. But in all those instances, the students pay the very lowest amount, and that's our base for deciding the rest of the revenue sources. So I believe right now we do 5, 10, and 15% higher than student rates as you go to June. So, but we always make sure students have the best price to get in there. Also, we've done some faculty staff tend to come early mornings and afternoons, typically when students are not in there. Student prime time is the evenings.
Any other questions?
So 25 minutes, right?
Yeah. Tell us what's there. Yeah.
Any questions? Thanks, Matt.
Thank you.
We'll now move to new business subsection B, which is supplemental funding request presentations. We'll start with request 2047, which is the NCTM annual meeting.
And they're being moved to next week.
Oh, that's right, because we didn't hear anything from them.
We did hear
So-
while we were at the meeting.
Yeah.
So they moved to next
Yeah,
week.
so we'll move to next week, which is, we'll start with request 2048, which is men's lacrosse competition travel, $6,400. Going up.
Yeah.
first off, thank you for having us and hearing our presentation. I'm Ethan Olson, Club President.
Keaton Sullivan, Social Media Officer and Safety.
I'm Hunter Graham, Vice President. With Peter Similar, Treasurer.
Before we start, I want to point out that our club is really big in transitioning of officers. And since I'm a senior, I'm graduating. Hunter and Keegan are going to be taking over next year. And they've been shadowing me for the last quarter, learning the ropes and everything. And this is their first big step in transitioning to a bigger role. So who we are, so we're the Men's Lacrosse Club. We currently have 25 members and we will be traveling down to San Diego. Every season we average about 18 players. We are a very active sports club team. Our team competes in the Pacific Northwest Collegiate Lacrosse League under the Division II level, and we are also active community members.
So what we're looking to do is we're going to go down to California. We're going to compete against higher Division II teams, receive national ranking. Last year, at one point, we reached 13th in the country. We compete under NCAA, which is a feeder to the NCAA for lacrosse. It's an actual division. There's teams like Baylor, South Carolina, those big colleges that you might notice. We're going to be leaving in our charter bus on Friday, March 20th, and returning on Saturday, March 28th. During this time, we're required to have 3 out-of-league games, and so we'll be playing against the SLC division, in Division I and Division II. We'll be facing San Diego State, which is a Division I program, UCSD, UC San Diego, and Southern Oregon.
And when we're down in California, we want to represent CWU as a whole lacrosse team. You know, we have like our community has a lacrosse culture, and we want to take that and shine light everywhere and show CWU is a good place. We want to show that not only in California, but in Washington State as well, and in our community, and build that.
Also, I'd like to point out that we were last year the first team in our club history to win a playoff game and advance to semifinals. We faced the number 4 team in the country, College of Idaho. We did fall short, but we made a nice long run. And we want to be the first team in program history to make nationals, which is down in Salt Lake City, Utah.
Lastly, to point out, the reason why we chose spring break is because we can't really afford to miss a full week of school during the academic quarter because we have a high standard of a good GPA for our team.
These are some of our teams in our league. We have Central, us, Montana, Pacific Lutheran, Western Washington, and then in the south is College of Idaho, Southern Oregon, and Western Oregon. But what I'd like to point out is we did used to have Gonzaga and 3 other teams like Portland State and University of Portland. They actually dropped because of funding. Sometimes they didn't have kids that could come out and play. And the really big thing that we have at Central is we do like to go to tournaments. We do like to get kids to come to school. They love the campus. I was going to go play East Coast lacrosse, came to this campus. I'd seen Central at another tournament, actually, something that we kind of did on the west side. And I really fell in love with the campus. I came here. I enjoy it. We're just looking for our money just to get down to California. We do get to see other high schools come out and watch us play. It is a big thing. We put it on Shoreline High School in the fall. We had high schools come out and watch us play UW in Montana, and it was a big fundraiser for that school.
So this is just kind of looking at our expenses and everything. As of right now, we have about $38 in our account. It is towards the end of the quarter. We've had a lot of expenses, whether it is the cross balls and everything during the season, because it did get a little bit snowy on us. Paying for other stuff that just happens, whether it is not having a trainer at the games, which is a penalty for us. So we are down a little bit. We are looking around for $6,400, and what that would cost is hotels and to get us, or pretty much hotels and food. We will be putting 4 kids in 1 hotel room just to try to keep the budget down, 2 kids per bed essentially. And what we're trying to do is to make this out of pocket as least as possible for the kids, because it is their spring break. It is something they have to do extracurricular. And then we did break it down as well. We were able to do some fundraising. We had a little bit of a mishap in our winter team store because it was over a holiday weekend. So unfortunately it did go down. We weren't able to fundraise nearly as much as we had. And so this is just where we are getting all of our funds from. The $6,100 is our total alumni fund over the last few years. And so we are putting all of it towards all of that.
I would like to point out, this is just for room and board. Food's coming out of our pocket. Our per diem right there is averaging us spending $50 a day as a person for each player on the team, just out of our pockets to get money or get food. So this is our 6,400 is just room and board. We don't want to be covering any food costs. It's just to get us there. We can afford a room, 2 to a bed. We got some big guys on the team, so we'll be switched in. So just to point that out there, this is just room and board.
And that room and board cost also will cover our 2 bus drivers and their hotel room as well.
And so just to reiterate, we are just looking for the 6,400 for the room and board. This is so we can compete at the national level. Like they were saying, we will be competing against teams like San Diego State who are nationally recognized. We are also looking to grow the sport of lacrosse in Central Washington. I actually came here not to play lacrosse. Found out about their program afterwards. It would have been amazing personally for me to know that Central had a lacrosse program and kind of go that route as well. And that's kind of one of my personal goals. And the thing is just to get exposure to the university. Like I said, we have a great new rec field. We would love to get those stands and everything, and just a promotion to see that the school is willing to send us down to California and to promote us. I think it would help to get the community back as well. Another way just to represent Central Washington out of the state of Washington, and then again to be the first team to go to nationals and to head to Salt Lake City.
All right, so what we have done to raise money so far, I'm just going to touch on some of the first 3. Sponsorship from KVU Physical Therapy. We set up a holiday team store, a spring team store. When people were trying to talk about what having another team store is, we had a lot of people go on at the same time, ended up crashing, and it was people that thought they got orders in over the weekend. Some social media officer, I got a lot of angry direct messages and Facebook posts. They ordered stuff, but it actually didn't go through, so we did lose quite a bit of money. We get about $3 on everything that is bought, and it ranges from like $25 to $100. If you want to get like a jacket, it's around $85, like a nice parka, Central Lacrosse on it, the approved logo and stuff. And it is expensive. We do not get a lot back, so it is kind of tough sometimes. So getting up to 500 is a goal. That is nice. That would be good off of the store, but unfortunately we did fall short.
And we are trying to set up fundraisers with restaurants all over Ellensburg and the community, and also get our name out there in Ellensburg. Like we're talking to Cornerstone Pie right now, really good pizza, D&M Coffee. We're also thinking about fundraising, having like a lemonade sale in front of the Cirque in the springtime when everything gets hotter, even a car wash or anything. We're just trying to raise more and more money and let the community know that Central has a lacrosse team and we're actually serious.
So yeah, something big our program has never had was a sponsor. We recently reached out to Canyon Physical Therapy, and their owner would really love to sponsor some club teams. So pretty much what they're going to do is we're going to get some banners from them, and then we'll hang them up at our field and post about them in our social media bios, and in return they'll donate $1,000 to us.
This is some of our fundraising items, just a quick look, quick glance. Here's some of our community service. We had a Yakima River cleanup. That was hard, unfortunately, because a lot of guys were going home. It was over like a break, but some guys did stay back. This is another team kind of giving up from the spring break. A lot of guys do want to go home, but we stay. We get these games done that we have to do for our thing. And then this was what was that, a market? The Ellensburg Farmers Market. Farmers Market. We had some guys go out there. It was pretty rainy. We thought it was going to be sunny, but we ended up just getting dumped on. So.
Something else really cool is our goalie volunteers to brand cattle for free. So he helps all the Ellensburg farmers out there just branding their cattle.
These are our extra activities. Like we have Halloween games that you see dress up, and we actually do that with the girls team as well on Alder Field. That's always a fun event. We always get together.
Yes, 10 minutes.
Oh,
Sorry.
Oh, no worries.
Alright, yeah.
That's like 3 slides.
Alright, so with that, we'll move to questions. Does committee have any questions? I mean, I guess could you just touch about, like, I guess the impacts after you guys move on this trip? What will change here for, like, the lab scale?
So a big thing is, I do know, I am in touch with some of the high schools, like down there. A lot of kids do come out to watch these games. I really do like it when I meet someone at Central and they say, yeah, I'm from out of state. I met my girlfriend from San Diego who's from California. No sports here. I just think it's really cool to touch other states, surrounding states around us. We have clubs that we face like Montana. They get to go all the way East Coast, and their stuff is a bit more expensive, obviously, but they get guys coming in from all over like East Coast states. And I just think it's really cool to grow like that Central community. I do meet a lot of guys. Everyone's surrounding high schools for me, but it is really nice to see people from out of state, just to know about us and shine a little light on Central itself.
Yeah, and to kind of touch off on that too, since we are a pay-to-play team, we can't give out scholarships. This San Diego, California trip is kind of an incentive to get more lacrosse players from the west side and from across the country to kind of come to our school to kind of grow our program as well. It's another incentive to get them into our school and stuff.
Dave?
Is the whole team going? All 25? Do you guys collab with the women's team at all to like do community stuff as well? You guys talked about like a game you guys do, but the women, would attract more women to their team too. So maybe you guys could collab. Do you guys do anything like that?
Yeah, in the past we collab and we help with, I forgot her name, but her first name's Nancy. She's a older lady who lives up Tandem, and we collabed with them last year and the year before to help do yard work for her and clean up her whole house and everything like that.
Any other questions from the committee? Thanks. Vote on next week.
Thank you.
Alright. Yeah, so with that, we'll move to request 2049, which is the Alpha National Conference for $7,000.
Alright, good evening everybody, my name is Gonzo, 5'6" on a good day, maybe 5'5", I think, discussing this budget. First, let me talk, this is my second year with Alpha CWU. I founded this, so I'm going to start with the history of Alpha, then I'll kind of talk a little bit about myself. I'm just so excited to talk about Alpha all the time. So Alpha is part of a national organization in the United States. It was founded in 1972. There's more, now we're at 100,000 members, like professional and student members throughout the United States. There's over 160 student chapters and 40 professional chapters. For instance, us in Central, we go network with professionals from the Seattle chapter, and these professionals represent companies like Boeing, Microsoft, Amazon, Google, companies that normally don't come to Central. So this is why Alpha is very important to Central. So Alpha actually stands for Association of Latino Professionals for America. We're not just for Latinos, we're inclusive to all. I founded Alpha last fall because I, as a student, could not identify with any other student organization in the college of business that really aspired to share my goals and my aspirations of networking with professionals at Microsoft, Boeing. I have members that go and they go have lunch and breakfast with executives from Microsoft on the highest towers. I've been to the Columbia Tower in Seattle. I've met mayors. I've met the CEO of Seattle Credit Union, senior vice president of Merrill Lynch, and they're all Latinos as well. And so it always feels good being in a room with these strong, powerful people that empower me. So what we do as a student chapter is we assist our members with professional development. It's easy to say professional development, right? Saying, oh, we help our members with this. But we literally host LinkedIn resume workshops and even interview workshops. I'll say meetings will be from 4 to 5. I'll say to 8 p.m., 9 p.m. I'll be my members with the resumes or preparing for mock interviews. This year, I've had, I think, 10 members that we've stayed after meetings. I'm just like, you know what? It's not about me, it's about you. This is my last year. I'm trying to give back to these people because I like to be very unselfish. I served 6 years in the Marine Corps Reserve, and that's what they taught me when I got to boot camp. It's not about you, it's about everybody in the whole. And we're inclusive to all students, so we're not just for Latinos, we're not just for business majors. You know, we're trying to improve our kind of gender ratio. We're trying to recruit more women. We're kind of struggling with that, and it's something that I want to fix within my club. And this is the brief Alpha CWU member impact. These are all students, a majority of them are first generation. These are diverse students that before they join our club, they did not have an opportunity or they did not have the knowledge to go with companies such as Boeing, Dell, Nestle, Moss Adams. These are major companies that everybody knows. And they either got internships or full-time offers. Last year when I came here, I think we only had 5. Now we're at, I think, around 11, and 4 more are still pending. This is my effort. This is our effort as a whole. This isn't Central putting funding into helping us minorities further our careers. This is student-led. Like, I had to fund this just so my people, my members, could have an opportunity to say, I want to work at Microsoft, and so they can do it. Like I said, we're diverse. We have members that are from Korea, Uganda, and I represent them. They always come up to me and ask me, are you sure I can be in your club? I'm like, man, this is your safe space. If you don't feel welcome in any other college business club, come to us, and we welcome them with open arms. So last year when I founded this, it was just Caleb and I. And this was in December at the Alpha Seattle Gala. I couldn't get funding for a hotel room, so I paid up front for hotel rooms. It was like $600, and I recently got reimbursed this month, but it was all worth it for my members. Caleb right here, because we went to this event, because what we do, he received a $5,000 scholarship from Microsoft through Alpha Seattle. He is also from the Yakima Valley like me. We both share the same, kind of a similar past growing up from Yakima Valley. Some of you guys, or some of y'all might read the news and see what happens in Yakima. So Caleb and I were kind of exposed to that. Me, as a middle school student, I was expelled twice. I had a 1.5 GPA in middle school, and look at me now. I'm meeting people from Boeing. I'm helping my members go to Boeing, helping my people go to Microsoft. Like, I'm living the dream. Nobody can really bring me down. Nobody can really tell me something bad because I've come from the bottom all the way up, and I'm bringing everybody with me. Right here is Paul San Nicolas. Him and his siblings had started one of the biggest Latino-based endowments here at Central. He was actually a music major, and he was so impressed with us. He actually invited Melanie Garza to come and help kind of go to one of his performances and actually perform. So, what I'm here for today is to ask for funding to go to Alpha Nationals. Last year when I presented, we got approved, but I couldn't find somebody to kind of help us with the money up front and then get reimbursed. So, we worked hard and we just didn't get to go. We had to wait again until this year. So Alpha Nationals this year is at the Caesars Palace in Las Vegas, Nevada. Their website says August 3rd through the 6th, but I have to check back with them because those dates don't sound right. It's usually like Friday through a Monday or Friday through a Sunday. This is a big event because over 50 Fortune 500 companies come, and there's a career fair. And it's not like we just meet them and we just come back home and say, oh, that was a great meeting. No. Our members can have opportunities to actually get a job on the spot. As you saw, there's some members that you're going to Dell. They literally went to an event that we took them to, handed in the resume. Within the next week or two, they got the job offer from Dell. Dell doesn't come here. Why? Because Central's kind of small. They go to UW, they go to WSU. Central, I get it. I love Central for the College of Business, but Central is too small sometimes for these companies to come. So I had to start this organization so we can have the opportunity to network with these companies. Because right now we're kind of limited to just going to Boeing, or maybe we'll get into another different company. This is a budget that I created for the event. Originally I was trying to host another Latino excellence kind of event in the springtime, but we don't want to do that anymore. We're just going to focus on marketing material and Alpha Nationals, so that'll put us at $6,180. That's all we're going to request. So the way I tried to book in rooms, I got 3. I was going to go with 2, just separate both the genders, but maybe if there's more people that go. I'm requesting for 7, but I'm hoping 10 people go with the fundraising that we're doing, and hopefully we get sponsored through the professional chapter as well. The flights they're cheaper than last year because this is in Vegas, so that's pretty good. We'll be trying to stay at the Caesars Palace just because I don't want to run the risk of having to commute from one side of Las Vegas to the other one, get stuck, something happen. I'd rather just be at that central location. Registration is around $250. 7 members, miscellaneous taxi from the airport to the hotel. but members will be paying for their own food. Marketing material, Alpha, CWU, we've actually operated with like no marketing material. What I'm talking about with marketing materials, I'm talking about the tablecloth and banners. We usually have like a little poster board sign, but I kind of want to improve that before I leave. And I'm not going to this is for my members, like I said. I work hard for my members for the future, because at the end of the day, it's going to impact them more than it does me. I'm already set. I have a daughter. I'm happy to hopefully be closer to her in Yakima. I'm going to talk a little bit about what we've done so far. In the fall quarter, we hosted the Boeing Latino Professional Panel. We invited over 50 high school students, and then, of course, the Boeing Latino Professional Panel on campus. And these kids loved it. They got to ask what these Boeing professionals, everything. They were like, how much PTO do you get? How's your retirement plan? They're like in middle school and like freshmen in high school. They're already asking those kind of questions. The Boeing people were like, oh, they can ask about their airplanes, how they fly and stuff. And they're like, oh, how's PTO? We also hosted Jordan Bayer from Morgan Stanley. He gave a financial literacy 101 last week, so it was pretty good. We had Mecha there, a few other student groups. Like I said, we're inclusive to all. So this is the future Alpha CWU impact that we're looking at having, I think, for this year and fall. CBRE, which is I think number 146 on the Fortune 500 list, they're looking to come back to Central and recruit students, not just my members, but Central students in general. We're trying to set that up. So yes, we are bringing opportunities and job opportunities. Microsoft Professional Panel, that's what I'm trying to work with. Bring a Microsoft Professional Panel to come on campus, and I'll invite high school students as well. Moss Adams Workplace Diversity Workshop. As you can see, my source is Moss Adams. That's where I enter. And now with my club, I've built a pipeline with my members that want to go to Moss Adams, they can go there, or Moss Adams can come to us and give their presentation. Deloitte is one of the top 4 accounting firms, and they want to come to Central and give back as well to our members. And then another thing that I kind of did, I worked with a group of other people. I wanted to do this for high school students. It's so I put a proposal to the WSCPA for a little bit over $1,600. So we're bringing around 120 high school students to Central with other professionals, and the professionals and the student volunteers will help these high school students with some financial literacy, like going through your checkbook, how to budget for your week, budget for the month, budget for the year, kind of basic skills that kids in underrepresented communities don't have. And so that's bringing that much money back to the school. And any questions?
Sweet. Alright, we have 10 minutes of questions for Gonzo. Alejandro.
So 7 students are attending?
7 students sponsored through S&A. The rest, we're working on fundraising. We're selling franchise. We have a few other events planned out. I just don't want to give out the ideas because it's not happening on campus. Lacey's already heard my idea. I just don't want it to get stolen. Any other questions?
Alejandro, what are like the requirements for students to be able to be
So students have to be involved. So that's from going to meetings, that's from helping fundraising, that's from helping recruiting, that's from keeping a GPA good, your resume, your LinkedIn, your cover letter, participating in interview workshops, because we want our members to go there and actually get a job and come back. That way we're diversifying our alumni base in the future. Because if we just send all our alumni to Boeing, that's going to get kind of boring, right? But if we have Dell, if we have Altria, if we have Johnson & Johnson, if we have PepsiCo, that'll be a lot of fun, especially diverse students. Like I said, we don't just have Latino students, we have students from Uganda and Korea. We have different other countries, and they're always asking are you sure I can come? It says Latino. I'm like, I get it says Latino, but this is more for Latinos. I was like, it's just part of a national organization. And I'm using that to benefit you all. So you don't have to be Latino to have a leadership role within the club. Any other questions, concerns, complaints?
Seeing none, thank you. Alright, with that, we'll move to request 2050, which is a new position for school campus. So let's see how.
Hello, my name is Michelle Clifford. I'm the Associate Director for our Westside Student Life. today requesting some extra funds to fund our part-time position at our Pierce location. So I wanted to start really quick with giving you kind of a demographic of our West Side centers and our students. We have over 1,240 University Center students, and as you can see, we have over 500 first generation students. We have military, family and spouses, international students, and nearly over 700 of our students are over the age of 25. And this kind of breaks it down by enrollment, ethnicity, and gender. And what I'm proposing today is, right now, student life, we have one full-time staff person, which is me. We are in the process of hiring another full-time staff who left back in November. So the position's been vacant since November, and we're getting really close to hiring that next person. And that person would be is located at our Linwood Center. All the way down south is our Pierce Center location, and there we see a need for a part-time, half-time person of the one that we currently have at Linwood or going to have. We are a base allocated area, and what I'm asking for is that extra funding for staffing to build stronger connections for our students. You know, a lot of times I catch myself saying our West Side students, but they're not West Side students. They're Central Washington University students. Student life is like a one-stop shop where here, you know, you have your student involvement, you have your diversity and equity center, you have your health center, all those different services. Student life houses all of those services in one. And so to be better able to meet the demands of our students, I feel like it's really important that we have someone down at our Pierce location to build that stronger relationship with our Coast Campus College. We work with them quite a bit. So some of the accomplishments that we've had over the past year, we've developed a leadership conference. We had a diversity conference back in November. We strive to have as many multicultural events as possible on our centers. We created a new club now, our STEM club. We do a lot of faculty collaboration, and that's ×3, so it's Linwood, Des Moines, and Pierce. We do collaborative events with our host colleges, ×3, that's Linwood, Des Moines, and Pierce. Our international student programming, which is mainly Linwood and Des Moines, we're increasing those opportunities for those students to become more engaged with the community. And then also some more community outreach opportunities through our host colleges. So having that extra person down at Pierce, again, we want to build that stronger relationship, and that person there can do that effectively. We want to create that sense of belonging for our online students who designate a center as their own. One of the things that we came across was that one of the online students said that they weren't receiving our emails saying that they could come to the center and even get basic things as their student ID. They thought they had to come all the way out to Ellensburg. So we want to make sure that we are reaching out to those students and making sure that they're cared for as well. We want to build up more clubs and support new activities. Right now, we're working with the ASCW for the Centers Council. We want to be able to further develop that and make sure that we get student voices from the West Side on those councils, and that person would help facilitate that at our Pierce location. And then we're also working with the Center for Leadership here, talking about increasing the MOUs to over there at the West Side, so we could start doing more volunteer opportunities with some of the organizations over there.
Awesome. 10 minutes of questions. Does anyone have any questions? Oh, Greg, you go first.
So is this position just for this year or through June 30th?
Well, we're looking at it to be a permanent position. For right now, though, yes, for
Okay.
next year.
Could you talk about the connections, or the build the stronger connections you said? How can you be specific about that and kind of give examples about that?
Sure. So the stronger connections I'm talking about, for instance, right now I'm planning a trip. We're calling it Bounce to the Bird. And our students are getting kind of excited for this. And we're offering the opportunity for them to come over here, tour the campus. Many of them have never stepped foot on the main campus. And build those connections with the faculty that they've never met before because they are online, some of them. Meeting up with our ASCW as well, with the group today to talk about helping us with that event. And then also the connections to the services. There's not an equitable amount of services from the west side to here. So I'm really trying hard to build that gap for our students so that they can have those same services over there on the west side too.
Thanks.
Great. Just, I guess 2 points. And one is that I'm thinking that must be some salary savings in the base budget if you've had an open position since November. And my other concern is that then what happens July 1? Do we need more funding next year to support this? And just thinking out loud.
Well, yes, so based on the number of students that we are serving and the desire to grow the centers even more, I am planning to address the committee again next year to increase those allocated funds to support preferably another full-time staff member, but half-time if that's what is available.
Eric.
And correct me if I'm wrong, would it be better to request this as an increase to base funding as opposed to supplemental?
So it's almost the same thing.
Oh.
So if this was to be approved, it would actually be an increase to their base funding. But the only form that we, for any base funded area, this would be the same process for them to increase.
Thank you.
Andre, this is a question for Lacey. So wouldn't they have to go through the board of trustees first if we approve this?
That is correct.
How do you identify like the need for this in like the West Side student life? I guess like how will this new position, what will they do to kind of like fix that?
To build the.
Yeah.
I'm
So,
sorry.
Yeah, because it just says like expand like the leadership capacity. So I was like wondering like what in that position will they do to do that?
Okay, they would meet with our Pierce College campus leadership team there and work on events, collaborating with them, and get more opportunities for our students to, because, you know, again, we're a one-stop shop, and so the more we can do with our host colleges, for example, Des Moines, we just did MLK Week with Highline College, so our students were able to attend that. We co-sponsored some of the events there, and so it just opens even that much more opportunities for them because we are time and place bound students. They don't have maybe the resources or the time out of their full-time jobs or families to come drive out here for some of the events. So when we can offer those things through our host campuses, it's a huge thing. And to tag on that, this is really interesting. Today a study came out, the Seattle Times, where they said 1 in 3 community college students have housing needs and struggles. And this is huge because our Des Moines Center, over half of our students come from Highline College. And most of our students, again, from Pierce and from our Edmonds College students. And so this is also another opportunity for us to be more available to our students if they have issues of insecurities, whether it become food, shelter, things like that. Just being that resource there for them.
Any other questions? from the committee? Thank you.
Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Thanks for being here.
Yeah. Okay, with that ends subject to B, new business. We'll move on to other business, communications received. Haven't received any, Joey.
I do. I have a follow-up from Ruben, the director of the Veterans Center, who just wanted me to share this following his program review the other week. Saying he wanted to provide a couple points of clarification on his recent S&A program review presentation for the committee. And again, Veterans Center, as a reminder. Our population consists of student veterans, service members, and their families. I referenced some population numbers on a couple slides, and it may have been perceived that those were just student veteran numbers. I want to make sure that this was communicated and so that it was clear for the committee members. Also, during the Q&A portion, there was a question on what we spend our S&A funding on. I failed to mention that our outreach recruiter position is partially funded at about 20% through S&A funding. Thanks, Ruben.
Any other communications received? With that, we'll move to public comment, second call. Joey.
And I somewhat referenced this earlier, but as a heads up and a follow-up to last week, the Observer article is out based on the S&A budget situation. So it's online. When you find one which may be outside of the room when we leave, or you'll see them in the morning, there will be the article. So feel free to check that out, as I'm sure there will be discussion coming our way following that. And then the other part is just I do want to appreciate you all for the conversation. I know these are tough, difficult situations, and it is important that you all are able to provide your feedback on it, even when you have opposing viewpoints, which is necessary. That's why you're all here, is not to necessarily everyone have the same viewpoint. So I appreciate that and that you all do it very professionally, so thank you for all of that.
Matt?
So real quickly, I think I made a mistake earlier in answering a question from Eric Bennett about minimum wage increases and asking for more money. But I'll correct it, it's going to eat me inside.
And then you're going to make me read something in a week.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So when I started close to 2 years ago, we knew minimum wage was increasing in the next 2 years. So last year we were very frugal in our staffing, so we saved money that year 2. So year 3, now we have some funds saved from that year to apply this year. It makes through this quadrennial. So when I answered yes, we'll come back for more money, that's for next quadrennial, not the current quadrennial. We will make this budget work for the 4-year period. So I just want to clarify that we're not affecting this year or this quad. Thank you.
Any other public comment? Alex?
Thank you, Aubrey, for working on the website. Very excited to see.
Yeah. Eric?
I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
There's motion, Dane seconds. Discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? So moved. Adjourn the meeting at 7:40.